Hello and welcome to the 2024 Christmas in July with Venetia Ramsey from Scrapworx. We are still in day 1, heading into project 3, and we will be continue working with the Glitz and Glamour collection. I'm using everything that's left over from the previous 2 projects to create a mini album. We are going to create the album from scratch together. I'm then going to run through some of the matting, do some of the matting with you, and then give you some ideas for embellishing and leave that up to you. Right, so I'm going to clean up quickly and we can get started with putting the album together. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, we're going to start with the project by putting together the mini album. We're going to start by doing the album cover first and then adding the page inserts. So you should have cut your grey board according to the cutting guide. The only thing, if you are planning to add extra pages, then I wouldn't cut the 4 centimeter spine yet. For every page that you're wanting to add, you're going to have to add 1 centimeter extra to your spine. So my spine is 4 centimeters wide. I've chosen to create an album that has a 1 centimeter gusset. If you're not planning to pack as much stuff into your album as what I am, you could make this gusset 1/2 centimeter. But I find a 1 centimeter gusset is quite comfortable to work with. Right, so you would have also cut out 2 small joining hinges and then 2 of the bigger joining hinges, and we'll get to putting those in place in a bit. We're just going to pop those off to the side. Right, so I think we'll start by putting the pages together so that you can see what I mean about getting your spine the right size. So I have already cut and scored my hinges, and then I've added double-sided tape to the edge of my hinge. And then one of the things I like to do is just cut the corners in slightly, so just a little miter. I like to cut from the fold line away instead of cutting into the fold line, in case you cut too close. You know, if you cut it in, if you add this way and you cut it there, then it's a bit difficult to fix it. So I always find it easier to go cut from the score line to the straight edge, from the score line, so basically to the cut edge. You can go ahead and do that to all your pages, all your hinges. So I've done that with the 2 short ones and then also the 2 long ones. Okay, so we're going to start by adding this page to this hinge. So what I like to do is I will line my hinge up on my cutting mat, and I know that this has got to attach here, and I'll use the cutting mat, the lines on the cutting mat, to help me get it nice and straight. Okay, so always good to do a little tester first, like that. You also want to make sure that when you attach your page that you don't bump it up flush against that score line. So you don't want to have it bumped up right against the score line. You want to attach it just slightly away from your score line. You want to be sure that your page lines up at the top and at the bottom with your hinge. So we've cut the hinges the same height as the page. Right, once I've got that in and I can see on my test run that it's going to work, you can release the tape backing. I like to bring it down a little bit halfway, fold it, take my page now and then line it up at the top and at the bottom here. Looks like I can give it a little bit more. You just need to be sure that you get this on straight, that it is slightly away from that score line. You can tack it in place like that. I'm happy with that. I'm just going to lift this page, remove the rest of my tape backing, and I'll keep my thumb there so that it doesn't fall flat, so that I can put it back down in place instead of just letting it flop in place. Double check that I'm happy that everything looks pretty straight. When I fold over, everything looks like it's pretty straight. This would be the opportunity before you burnish then to take your page off and straighten it up if need be. Right, so we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to use my mat to get my page straight. Remove the tape backing halfway down. Take another page and attach it to the top, to the bottom here. Make sure it's nice and straight. I'm just going to tack it in place. I'm going to lift this up, put my thumb under, remove the rest of the tape backing, and then carefully put this back down so that I keep it nice and straight. I'm happy with that. When I turn it over, it's nice and straight and it's not overlapping my score line. Right, so we can then just burnish that in place. So now we need to add the next hinge. Right, so what I'm going to do is fold this so that my hinges are facing my mat. Put that aside, get my other one, I'll line it up on my mat. Bring it a bit closer. There we go. So I'm using my score line to make sure that it's lined up there and there. Going to remove my tape backing halfway down. So I'm going to pick this up, turn it over so that the flat part, not this part with a hinge, the base page is what's going to be attached to this part. I'm going to line that up at the top and at the bottom here, making sure it doesn't go over that score line and that it is in line at the top and at the bottom. Put that down. It's straight here, straight enough there. Just going to tack it in place. Again, I'm going to lift this up, put my thumb under, remove the tape backing, hold this, put it down where I need it to go. There we go. Give that a bit of a burnish. And then when we turn that, it isn't overlapping the edge there or there, and it's not too far away from my score line. If it was, this is when you would need to lift and put it in place. I've already burnished, so before you burnish, you would lift and put it back into place. So now we have 2 pages and 2 spines. All right, so now we need to add the other paper, the other page, to this one. So again, you're going to open it up, line this up on the mat. So I use that score line and the lines on my craft mat to make sure I've got it straight. Okay, I'm going to remove the tape backing halfway down and attach the other page. I'm going to line that up at the top and down the bottom here. Got it on nice and straight. It's not overlapping my score line. Lift it, my thumb under, remove the tape backing, hold this and put it where it needs to be. Okay, double check it's not overlapping, all looks good, and then I can burnish that in place. So now I have 3 pages attached. Just push that back. So I have my 3 pages that are going to go into my album, but only a 2 centimeter spine. So now if you wanted to add another page, you would have to cut another hinge and another page and attach, and then another hinge, another page and attach. So, but I find that 3 or 4 in this type of album, 3 or 4 pages is more than enough. So before we add the rest, we're just gonna burnish this, make sure we've got it straight. So one of the things I like to do is line my page up top and bottom, make sure that that's pretty straight, hold that in place, oops, and make sure this is flat, hold this in place and burnish. Right, so if it happened that you attached it very skewed, so say it was, you had it on like that, you can try and cut it straight. So you can put it into your paper trimmer and try and cut. I would put it in to cut it the whole way straight, but then remember your height would then get slightly, it wouldn't be a full 25, it would probably be between 24.5 and 24.75 is what your height would then be. But generally I find if you make your album this way, it's very unlikely that it's going to come out skew. Right, so you can use any method to create the base pages of your album. You can use Stack the Deck or Hidden Hinge or this system, or if you've come up with something that works for you, as long as your base page at the end of the day measures 20 by 25 and you have a 1 centimeter gusset. Right, so the next part we're going to add is what I call the wing. It's the part that's going to secure the pages to the front and back cover of your album. So we're going to put our pages down so that our hinges are again flat on the facing the mat. You're going to take one of your 7 centimeter hinges. We're going to do the exact same thing. The only difference now is that this is a little bit more extended. I used to, you know, things evolve and you get better and better at doing things, or more comfortable with the way the process works. I used to make this the same width as this, but I find it's a lot of paper to deal with, and by making it shorter and attaching some paper over it, I think makes it a little bit firmer in your album and less likely to pull out. Okay, so we've lined this up like that. We're going to do the same thing, remove the tape backing halfway down. So now you're going to pick your pages up and turn it over so that the spines are now facing you, and you're going to attach the flat side to your hinge. So the same thing, you're going to attach it flush at the top, flush at the bottom, slightly away from the score line, tuck it in place, lift it up, remove the rest of the tape backing, hold your pages and put them down where you want them to be. There we go. Finish that in place. So that is on the one side. Now we've attached that. So now you can see we now have a 3 centimeter spine. But this piece here is what's going to attach to the front or back of your album. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Going to push this down, making sure everything stays straight. Okay, give it a good burnish. So I have my spines are flat on my mat, and I need the next hinge. I'm going to line that up there, line that up there. Remove the tape backing halfway down. Take your album, you're going to turn it over, and we're going to attach the flat side flush against the top, slightly away from the score line. You want to get it flush at the top, flush at the bottom, like that. Right, lift it up, put your thumb underneath and remove the rest of the tape backing. Hold your pages and put them where they need to go. Don't just let them flop. Right, so we're going to burnish that in place. And there we go. Right, so when we disengage, there we go. So now we have 4 1 centimeter spines, 3 pages with what's going to join the insert to your album front and back. Right, so we'll get to that part in a bit. What you're going to need now is your album cover, the front, the back, and some I'm going to use some construction tape, and then I'm also going to use a thin double-sided tape So this measures about 4 mil. You can use a 5 or a 6 mil, or however big you want to make the gap in your spine. Right, so when I choose the size of my spine, once I've got all my pages and all my hinges on, including my joining hinge, I measure that. So I just take that and then I measure that. You see there, 4 centimeters, and that's how I know how wide to make my spine. Right, and if you're unsure, once it's cut, you can also then just pop your spine on. There we go, to make sure that it fits. Remember, it's going to be 20, it is slightly longer than your album because you want the top and the bottom. But if I pop it on like that, it looks like it's going to work. Right, we'll pop that aside. Okay, so we're going to begin by joining the spine to the front, or to one of the covers, and then to the other cover. Okay, we'll start with one cover and then the other. So I'm going to start on this one. I'm going to use my mat as the guide. I'm going to pop my front cover like that. I'm going to use the construction tape. And I'm going to use the line. I want to attach it 1 centimeter onto my gray board. So I'm going to use that line as my guide so that I get it on straight, and that line as my guide over there. And then I'm just going to trim that off. Like that. Down a little bit too hard, but anyway, there we go. And we can turn it over and then just give it a bit of a burnish. Then I want to attach this spine here, but I need a little bit of a gap, so that's where this tape comes in. So I'm just going to use the tape to create the little gusset. You can measure it. If you don't have a tape, you can measure. So I wouldn't go bigger than the 6 mil or less than the 4. 5 would be perfect. Okay, it looks like I got it on a bit skew there. I'm going to do that again. So it has already pulled the tape backing off. Maybe I can get it off. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to put another piece on. I want to make sure that I get it flush against that gray board, that there are no gaps. Otherwise I'm going to have it a bit skew. There we go, that's better. All right. Then I'm going to attach this. I'm going to put my spine flush against the top, flush against the bottom. That looks a bit better. And I'm going to slide it away until I feel it click off the tape, and then pop that down like that. Alright, we can then trim off that excess tape. And on the other side. And you're just going to repeat that process on the other side. I just want to make sure that this tape is on, that we've got it on good burnish. All right, then I'm just going to burnish it inside here. And then before we add the other piece of tape, I'm just going to turn that over and then do it to the other side as well. Just turn it over. Okay, I do that to make sure, one, that my tape is not pulling my spine funny, you know, that it's not pulling it skew, and that there are no air bubbles, and also to make sure that I can actually, once this is in place, that this is going to open and close comfortably, that I haven't gone too skew. Right, so we're going to do the other one. Same thing. Put that down on your mat. Use your construction tape. I wanted a 1 centimeter, so I'm going to line it up there and over there, and that should have got it on pretty straight. You can trim that off. Okay. Want to then add our little gusset. Right, so this time I'll pay attention, make sure I get it flush against the grey board. There we go, that's better. Give that a little burnish. There we go. So now we want to add it to this side. Okay. I often make the mistake of attaching it this way. Make sure that the black or the construction tape is facing down and not facing you. Line your spine up with your cover, and the same thing, I just slide it along and you will feel it click click into place. There we go. Give that a bit of a burnish. We're just going to trim off the excess. Go. So I want to do the same thing with this side. I just want to turn that over, make sure that that's on, burnish down properly, and then give it another turn. Do you see here it hasn't stuck on properly? So I can then just give that a good burnish, make sure I've got all the air bubbles out. Close that up. There we go. That's better. There we go. So here I can test now if my page will open and close nicely. It looks like it will. And that is how I get the two sides joined together. Okay, and then because I'm not going to use the wrapping method to cover my album, I'm rather going to use the construction tape to create my edges so that I'm able then to decorate the front on a piece of cardboard and stick it on. So I will have a black border all the way around, and I will just put something on the front. Let me show you one of the others. Okay, so I make these, quite a few of these. I keep them on hand. So I'll make a few in all the same size. So for this one, you can see I've used the construction tape for my borders. So I will just stick a piece of cardstock on and decorate it like that. Okay. This one, I wasn't paying attention, and you can see here, see, and it hasn't stuck properly. I didn't make my construction tape long enough, so I had gaps, but I'm not going to throw it away. I'm not going to do something else. I couldn't wrap it because I already had my pages on the inside. So this is just a piece of fabric tape that I've attached, and once I put my page on, it'll hide that, and you wouldn't even know that I hadn't managed to get it all the way around. Right, so I've put it up, so I messed up on both sides. You can see there's the little gap. Right, so let me show you how to do that. So the same thing, we're going to line the album up on the mat so that you've got a nice line, a straight line to work with. We want to lift the, I want to find my pokey tool. I don't know where it's got to now. Let's see, I'll just use a pin. Just want to lift the backing of the double-sided tape that we've used inside here. Just want to lift that up, the release paper. Okay, I find it easier to use a pokey tool or the pin than to try, especially because the gap is so narrow. It's easier than trying to pick it up with your nail or your fingers. Right, so we're going to take the construction tape, going to find the 1 centimeter. I'm going to use that as my marker. I'm going to tap it down, not too tight and not too firmly, so that I'm able to get my tape on straight-ish, like that. And then we can trim it. Alright, let's lift it. And just in case it's attached too well somewhere, I just lift it up like that. Right, take my scoring tool and then just attach the tape, the construction tape, to the tape in the middle here. Just like to work it in a little bit, not too tight. Right, we've got this on nicely. We're going to turn it over. Going to work from the inside out, from the side. I like to work from the middle out, so I'm going to pull this in like that, firmly but not too tight. So I'm just going to pull it, the construction tape, over like that. Okay, not all the way to the end. You want to make sure that there's a good stick between the tape and the edge of your grey board. You do not want to have a gap there. So like that. Oops, sorry. It's a bit big when the light gets it. All right. So then I will remove the excess of this tape. So I'm just making sure that it's stuck. Making sure that there's a good bond between the side. It's worked well. And my tape. And like here, there's a little air bubble, so I'm just going to work that out. Be sure that this is flat. Good. And then just trim off the ends. Trim off that little bit of excess. And the same on the other side. We're just going to, some here, trim off the excess. You want to be sure that that tape is cut off flush against the side. Right. Double check that your album is still closing and that is not pulling in funny directions. Anything can happen at any stage. I'm just going to lift the tape backing. Like that. We're going to do the same thing. Line my my album cover up on the line. I'm going to attach the tape from one end to the other. I use that just to get it on straight-ish. It's not 100% straight. It's not the end of the world. We can always cover it up with paper when we start to decorate. It looks like it could be good. I'm going to trim that off. Just lift it up. Before we get going, we just want to get this tape backing to attach to your double-sided tape in the little groove. There we go. I'm going to flip this over. Right. Starting from the inside, pull it down, work that in. Then we can work further to the outside, other side. Right, I have always found it easier to work this way. I did it on the side so it was easier for you to see. But there we go. Make sure we've got a good stick. Everything feels like it's in the right place. My album can still close nicely. I can still work it in a little bit over here. I want to be sure that my edges have a good bond, that there are no gaps. Right, and we can just trim off the excess. And there we go. So that's the top and the bottom done nicely. It doesn't look like I got it off properly here. Double check. There you go. See? There we go. Now we check to make sure that it's still closing properly. There's a good bond both ways. Yeah, happy with that. Okay, so now we need to do the sides. Just gonna put that back in place. We'll take it off properly just now. So the sides we do just a tiny little bit differently. We need to miter these corners so that they're nice and neat. You can, if you want to make straight corners like that. I just find that angling them a little bit just seems to finish it off just a tiny little bit better. Okay, so you could have taken the tape so that it's not all the way down, but then you stand the risk of having gaps like with my previous project. So I think it's always better to attach it right to the edge. Let's try that again. We need to line it up on the mat. Get it on straight-ish. And we're going to cut it here like that. Right, lifting it up off the mat. I'm going to turn it over now. All right. So the same way you would miter the corners if you were using paper, I like to do that with these. My little goodie does get stuck to the construction tape, but it's fine. I'll just pull it off. All right, so there we go. Does get a bit stuck. Nothing I can't undo. All right, so we've got that. So I've cut it, if I show you closer, slightly away from the corner here. I haven't cut it flush against the corner. All right, so I'm just going to turn this one in like that, and then work this in around like that. Okay, so that's how we're going to do the corners. We need to miter the other corner before we carry on. So again, just going to touch my little goodie. it off. There we go. So same thing, I'm just going to pull this in, work it in nicely, take my embossing tool, push it down and around like that. And then working from the middle, going to pull that on nice and tight. Firmly is a better word, better than tight. Nice and firm. Then just burnish all of that so you get all your little air bubbles out. And there you go. Okay, so I have on the inside, I have the straight edges, and on the outside we have the mitered corner, and it's going to look very nice then when we cover this up. All right, you can have it the other way around if you prefer. It's entirely up to you. If it's done very neatly, it's unlikely that you're going to see either way. You can, if you want to, also cut it here, but then you've got that, you can see the cut edge here, whereas this one wraps around nicely, is nice and neat. Right, let's do the other one. So again, we're going to put it on the mat so that it's nice and straight. Find my 1 centimeter. There we go. Okay, and I rather give myself a little bit of an extra overhang than not have enough. There we go. Good. So I'm going to miter the corners. Okay, so I'm going to fold that one over, work it in, turn and push it flat. Same way this one, turn it in, just work it in around like that so we get it nice. Okay, working from the center, pull towards you and firmly pull it towards you and just work your way to the edge. There we go. And you can barely even see where it joins over here. If it wasn't for this little bit of white sticking out here, you wouldn't even know. From the adhesive, you wouldn't even know that we've joined it on either side. Nice and neat. Okay, so now we need to attach our pages. So these need to go in now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is attach some tape. I'll work with some glue and tape, just makes it a little bit easier. Right. I'm going to attach some tape down the length of each of my gussets, the back of the hinge. Like that. Another one. So I'm covering the whole width of my spine. I have put the tape on a little bit skew, but we'll fix that. When we pull it off, it'll fix itself like that. I'll use the broader tape for the edges. So I'm going to pop a piece of tape flush against the cut edge like that. And again on the other side as well. And then I'm going to put another piece here. I know that it's probably not the best way. It's probably not a good thing to overlap it, but it's such a small little overlap. It doesn't bother me. You've got to go with what's easiest for you and what works for you. There we go. Okay, so we're just going to give this a good burnish. We want to make sure that the tape sticks to the paper, that there are no air bubbles, that everything is nice and flush and secure. Anywhere where I may have skipped with the tape, I'll fix with the glue. Right. So when we attach this now, I'm going to fold it, and this line is going to attach flush. I'm going to take this piece of tape out now so that you can just see. It's going to attach flush with my gray board over here like that. I'm also going to space it so that it's kind of centered between the top and the bottom. If you want to measure, it's 1/2 centimeter. So if you would like a little guide, let me do that for you. You can then just measure 1/2 centimeter from the bottom of your spine. Okay, so I know that there is how much of a gap's going to be at the bottom, and it'll be the same at the top. My page is 25 centimeters. My album is 26. 26 minus 25 leaves you with 1. Divide by 2 is 1/2 centimeter at the top, 1/2 centimeter at the bottom. That's my math to figure it out. Right, so that's kind of where that's going to go like that. And I want to have it flush against the gray board. All right. Obviously, I'm going to stick my spine down, but just so that you can see, that's what's going to attach to your spine. So I don't remove all the tape. I leave the tape on the sides. I'm going to just take the tape off my spine because that's what's going to go down now. All right. That's the one that went skew, and then this one followed up and went skew as well. I am going to add a little bit of glue, just a little bit, to the top of each of my little spines, gussets, and a little bit just to the bottom. And then anywhere where I can see that I may have missed with the tape, especially here where I went very skew. Okay. So just a little bit of backup. So I'm going to attach my spine flush against the gray board and along that 1/2 centimeter mark that I made and over there like that. I'll pop that down. I'm not burnishing anything in place. I'm just double checking that it's straight. and open up and push that down, open up, checking that my pages, that my gap at the top and at the bottom still looks the same on the left, the right, the top and the bottom. Open up the next one and just give that a bit of a burnish. Alright, any excess glue that squeezes out, we'll just clean that up. Right, so happy that that is in place. I can see when I have it down that it's straight. My pages are straight with that, and they are parallel here. The gap here and here is more or less the same. So I'm just going to burnish that into place. Open up the next page, do the same thing. So to begin with, the pages are going to be a little bit stiff, but as you work with your album and add some weight to the pages, they will start to adhere, they will start to open and close better and lay flatter. They're not too flappy, but they do need some weight on them to lay 100% flat. And like I say, they'll open and close quite comfortably as we go along. Right, so the next thing is we need to get the wing attached to here, because we're going to attach that, and then obviously when we stick a piece of paper on, everything will be covered up. If you're worried that this is going to be too, you know, that a piece of it's going to stick out, or either on the top and the bottom, you can also miter these corners. I'm not too worried. I often find I'm able to match it up quite well. Right, so we're going to remove the tape backing. I'm just going to do the one. Oh, I've got a pin. There we go. So I'm going to remove, I'm not going to remove the other one just yet. Again, just a little bit of glue. I'm going to put the glue on at the top and at the bottom. And then in the gusset itself, I'm going to fill up, even though there's tape in there, I'm just going to fill this little gusset up with some glue. Okay. Right. You're going to need a scoring tool. So what I'm going to do is fold this down. I'm not going to stick this yet. I'm going to keep this up a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to move my scoring tool in along the gray board. I just want to move it up and down like that. Okay, and you can see some of the glue is oozing out top and bottom. So I would just wipe that off for now. Can always clean it up properly at the end. I just don't want to get any in the gusset itself, which is what's happening. So let's see if I can use this to get rid of some of it. Yeah. There we go. So I'm just going to, there's the furthest part of the gray board. I worked my way over to the other side like that, but still keeping my thumb under here so that the paper has some give. Right, you want to burnish firmly because obviously you want to get a good stick, but not too hard, because remember the glue makes the fibers in the paper soft. So if you burnish with a very deeply and hard, you stand the risk of burnishing right through your paper. So you want to apply just the right amount of pressure to make sure you get a good stick. Alright, so before I attach my spine, I just want to make sure that my album is still able to close, which it is. Alright, so now I can remove the other tape backing. see if I can get it. There we go. So I'm going to remove the other piece, the other tape backing. There we go. There we go. Oops. That's why it's not the best idea to overlap your tape. But yeah, always breaking the rules. I just want to make sure that that tape, that there's no funny stuff with the tape. There we go. Right, so again, get this attached inside here. Make sure there's a good stick. All right, and then keeping lifting this up, pushing that down. By doing it that way, you stand less risk of putting any extra pull on your front cover to pull it in a funny direction. All right, so there we go. Close that up. And inside here. So far, so good. Opening and closing quite comfortably. So we have to do that on the other side as well. Right, so we're going to open up. I think I'm going to pull this tape backing off first, even though we don't, it would be better to leave it on while we work with it. I just don't want to risk what like happened on the other side. So there we go with that. I'm just going to have to work a little bit extra carefully with all the tape being off. And then take that one off as well. So we've got all these goodies that we can just throw away. All right. So we're going to add some glue. Fill up this gusset. A little bit of glue on the end. A little bit of glue on the end. There we go. All right. And close this. Don't put it down all the way. Same thing. You're going to take your scoring tool or your burnishing tool, whatever you just want to pick up. Work on this piece of cardboard. Use that as your guide to be able to score and get this in place. Once you've got that, shift over to the other piece. So the other side of the grey board. So one is against the spine, one is against the actual cover. There we go. Just want to get rid of that extra glue that's oozing out at the top and at the bottom. All right. So my warning again, remember the glue makes the fibers and the paper soft and wet. If you burnish too hard or with a huge amount of force, you stand the risk of tearing your paper. I would rather go over the spot left, go over the other side, go back over the same one. Just keep going with the same amount of pressure over and over the same piece so that you don't damage your spine. All right. I think it's always good to use a glue that dries clear, and so the art glitter glue dries clear and also doesn't leave like a shiny residue. Right, so now we need to attach this piece. So I'm going to lift my cardboard up a little bit, my album cover, and then just gently attach the flap. Okay, double check that my album still closes. Okay, open up, make sure that my gusset, the paper is stuck into that gusset. Everything's working fine. I'm going to give it an extra burnish. Close up my glue. And let's see where we're at. So there we go. That is the album cover and pages created. So So you can then pick and choose which side you want, whether you want this to be the front or the other side to be the front. There we go. Just like work it a little bit. Open and close your pages. There we go. So I find that this type of spine is very nice in that your album will always lay flat. So you won't, you know, unless you make a huge big spine, but even when you open it, because we have this gusset here, it lays flat. I find if your first page is too close to your spine, sometimes it doesn't want to lay flat, or it puts pressure on this part and then it stays up like that. For me, this way of doing putting your albums together, you have more chance of your album laying flat, especially when you've got lots of stuff in it. Okay, so that is the albums made. We will in the next part we are going to add the pages. Okay, so I will see you in a bit.